So I will call the August 12th, 2026 meeting of the Transportation Commission to order. Ariana, if you could please read the instructions. And we may well have people joining late because the old update takes a while and puts everybody behind. I know it put me behind when I joined. So we'll just watch for people as they come in. So Ariana, if you'd like to go ahead, thanks.
Yep. Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. And it looks like we have a few people in attendees who need to be moved over. It looks like Chris got moved over. Looks like Fadi needs to be moved over, Alder Okovich, and Buddha, who's the new finance director at Metro Transit.
They should be moving over. I think maybe they accidentally declined, but I'll try and promote them again.
There we go. And Alder Okovich, I think, still needs to be moved. All right. Thanks, Ariana. Scott Briggs is filling in for Aiden tonight. Thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate your help. If you could call the roll, please.
Certainly. Let's see. I'll pull up my list. We have William Okovich.
Present.
Ankovich.
Here.
We have, I'm sorry, I'm managing this. Sean O'Brien.
Present.
Derek Field.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Pepe Barros.
Here.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
And Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Clemes.
Here.
And Lynn Olson.
Present.
Thank you.
And Alder Harrington McKinney and Denise Jess are both excused tonight. So Lynn, you are able to make motions and vote. Okay. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the minutes from the last meeting? If so, could we have a motion? Pepe.
Move approval to the meeting, the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion. Bill, is that a second?
This is a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or be shown as abstaining. So please raise your hand. Okay, the motion's carried unanimously. Next, do we have any public comment under item 1 for items not on the agenda? Is anybody registered under item 1 to speak?
We didn't have any registrants before the meeting.
Okay, Ariana mentioned that we had some registered for number 7. Is that all you see now?
I will double check. That's what I saw right before we started, but I'll.
Okay, great. So nobody under number 1. How about any disclosures or recusals this evening? And Ariana, Mike Chuck-Vala is in the attendees and he's staff. So if you could move him over, that would be awesome. Okay, no disclosures or recusals. We'll move on to the consent agenda. It sounds like, Scott, we don't have anybody registered to speak for items 2, 3, or 4. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Oh, and Sean Malloy is also in the attendees. That darn Zoom upgrade sends everybody to the attendees section, it seems. If you could move Sean over, that would be great. So nobody's registered to speak. So we have item 2, which is Legistar 94195, item 3, which is Legistar 94196, and item 4, which is Legistar 94197, all related to various contracts recommended through traffic engineering. Did anybody wish to have any of those items separated from the consent agenda? I'm not seeing any hands. Bill?
I'll make a motion for approval of consent agendas 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, there's a motion. Alder O'Brien?
I'll second.
Okay, and a second. And since they're on the consent agenda, that's assuming no discussion. So I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote, unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. So please raise your hand. Okay. All awesome things that we'll look forward to hearing about in the future. So that motion is carried unanimously. So that takes us to item 5, which is a Department of Transportation Annual Operations Report. Christoph.
We are pleased to present the annual report of the Department of Transportation. So I'm just going to give a brief presentation here. The full report is posted in Legistar, and happy to answer questions about anything in there. So this is required by ordinance that I do an annual report, and I decided to take the opportunity to sort of take a step back and look at the big picture about transportation, because I think it can be useful in informing our discussions and also informing the initiatives we have going forward. So first of all, I want to note the breadth of the department. There's nearly 700 people in the Department of Transportation, regardless of the day of the year or the time of day there is somebody working. There are mechanics keeping our buses going. There are parking enforcement officers out on the street. There are traffic signal technicians. There are all of the people who are necessary to keep all of our various transportation networks functional. And this entire report is a testament to their work, and I'm always grateful to all of them. And meanwhile, as we keep operating the system, we also have a whole series of plans for the future. We are trying to figure out what kind of city we want to live in and what kind of transportation networks we need in order to support that. So here you can see some of our key initiatives right now. And as we go through the report, you'll notice that a lot of these are highlighted as being related to a lot of the points we make in the report. So what we're trying to do here is cover all of our modes of transportation. And by doing that, that means we're covering some things that are not necessarily under the control of the department and some things that are not even under the control of the city. For example, this map here is very much about glaciers, which we obviously did not control, but which shaped the city in a way that really shapes all of our transportation networks. I think it's very important to realize that the basic urban structure of Madison and its location next to and between the lakes has really shaped a city that is very multimodal, that is very transit friendly, that is very pedestrian friendly, and that is very walking friendly. It's also interesting to note our growth patterns. Half the growth in the city over the last 5 years has happened along either our current BRT line Route A or our new BRT line Route B. So we've really seen a change in the land use pattern here to a lot more densification and intensification. And what this means to me is everybody in every one of these buildings, whether they live there, whether they work there, whether they study there, can take advantage of that transportation infrastructure, can take advantage of that great transit service in the BRT corridors. Pedestrian networks, 73% of the streets in the city have sidewalk. We provide some peer comparisons in the report. Obviously, we want this number to be 100%, and that's something that this commission is working very hard on. But large parts of the city do have that essential infrastructure. But we have to consider also not just do we have the infrastructure, but can people safely use it? And when we look at pedestrians, for example, the biggest obstacle is often the ability to cross a street. And here you can see very clearly where streets become barriers to that pedestrian network. And that has very real safety implications. Here you can see the heat map of where fatal and severe pedestrian crashes are happening. Some really notable things here. As you might expect, the areas that are highest in pedestrian activity are also the ones where the most crashes are happening. But note that we have some hot spots elsewhere. Note areas around Stoughton Road. Note South Madison on here. And this really tells us places we need to work on. For biking, we are biking 3 times as much as Americans in general. The data here is limited. We only have commute data. But you can tell that this is very much a biking city. And a lot of that is because of the infrastructure. What we're trying to do with this map is not our existing path infrastructure, but what gaps in that infrastructure might be. Where are the paths making connections? Where are the paths not making connections? And which parts of the city are not connected by paths at all? And you can see some icons, and you can also see some pretty large portions, for example, on the far east side, where we really don't have that kind of continuous trail connectivity. We may have isolated segments, but we don't have trails. And we're trying to think about how to connect those together, and also how we can make this network easier to understand. When it comes to our bike lanes, we have a much spottier condition, which is why we have the all ages and abilities bike plan. But you can see the level of difference in level of comfort on these bike lanes and separation from traffic. And you can also see the significant gaps in this network. For transit, we have really good transit coverage. 94% of residents are within half a mile of a bus stop. That doesn't mean, obviously, that everybody can walk that distance. It doesn't mean that sidewalks are present, but generally, a broad swath of the city is served with transit. I'll note that these numbers are actually very similar to what they were before the bus network redesign. But it's also noteworthy how our frequent routes fit into that. The strongest ridership we have is on these routes that run every 15 minutes or better. And those also cover the densest parts of the city, as well as connect to our biggest job centers. What you see highlighted here is the 5 most important job centers in Madison. 4 out of the 5 are on the BRT network, and the other is quite close. When we look at the performance of those bus routes, 75% on time, 74% on time performance is good, but it varies hugely. And what this map is showing you is just how much slower the buses get when they get close to downtown. And they're also showing you some of the areas where they get less reliable. There are plans in the works for some of that. That unreliability on South Park Street will be solved by BRT. But this also points to where we might want to think about other transit priority infrastructure. What this network has done is meant that residents of Central Madison really drive much less than residents in the suburbs. And that's a combination of transit, it's a combination of walking and biking, it's a combination of land use, of people simply having destinations closer to them. And a really remarkable stat, over 10 years, the population of the Isthmus increased 14%. But traffic coming in and out of the Isthmus decreased by 15%. So even as the city is growing, we are actually seeing less driving. And I think that's a testament to that land use as well as to all of those transportation options. It's also, frankly, a testament to the fact that we never build freeways near downtown, which I think has been one of the parts of Madison transportation history. But it's also noteworthy on this map, the sort of segments or freeway-like roads which remain here. Look at it from a Vision Zero standpoint, often tend to be crash hotspots as well. And we can think about maybe what the future of those could be. Also looked at our parking garages, and this is fascinating. Garages which traditionally really were there for 9 to 5 work commutes are now seeing their heaviest loads on a Saturday night. They're seeing a double peak on Fridays, and they're seeing use throughout the week. I will also note when I show this graph, what our data also tells us is there is parking available downtown every day of the week, every time of the day. The parking is there, and that demand varies across the day. Finally, finishing up with trains, we have a lot of railroad tracks here in Madison, but they have very few trains on them. Everything you see here in blue and green averages one train a day or less, which means most days there isn't a train on those tracks at all. That is obviously means less impact on communities, but it also means an opportunity for passenger rail. And finally, even though we don't operate the airport, we do note in here how successful the airport has been at getting new flights. Even though we don't operate it, one of the things we can think about is how to access it. And one of the things that gets very obvious quickly is how patchy access to the airport can be by mode and by direction. It's a lot easier to drive to the airport than to bike to the airport, for example, but it's also a lot easier to drive to the airport from the south than it is from the north. So we hope this report is useful to you. We hope it is a document you can refer to in the future through the many discussions we have in this body, and I am happy to answer any questions you have. I will also note if you have any comments or want things elaborated, we have published this as a draft, so we still have the opportunity to make some changes before we finalize it.
Thanks, Christoph. Just want to double check that we don't have anybody registered to speak on this item.
No, we only have people registered for item 7.
Okay, great. Just double checking. Sometimes people register at the last minute. So we'll go ahead with questions. Alder Okovich, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Christoph. If you could go back to the bus route map showing the speeds and the reliability.
Sure.
Am I interpreting this correctly that a thick line means that there's larger variability in how frequently? Okay, so a thin line is more reliable.
A thin line is more reliable, yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at the big part on the isthmus, and I'm wondering, specifically the north side of the isthmus, at Johnson Gorham University, and wondering if you have any insights into why that is. I want to hear you.
I don't know that I have any direct answers to that one. I mean, obviously, getting through Johnson Gorham has a lot of friction, to put it one way, and I think we're definitely seeing that show up there. But I don't know that I can point to a specific cause. I think one of our next steps in this kind of analysis is digging further into each of these segments, because this is done on a point to time point basis, and sometimes it may turn out that there's a very specific spot in that segment where the stuff's actually happening. But I'm actually curious on your take on it, since obviously you know that area well.
Yeah, I mean, my take, I think a big part of it is pullouts, especially mornings and afternoons. The traffic is so saturated that a bus can be sitting there for 30 seconds plus, and are spaced, that's, a frequent delay. I know there's plans to install, blanking on the name, but basically, what was it?
Like bus bulb outs?
Bus bulb outs, yes, so that the bus doesn't actually need to leave the travel lane in order to stop. And so I think there's 2 on Gorham and 2 on Johnson that the D serves, and I'd be curious what the impact that has.
Yeah, those definitely help reliability. The interesting things about a map like this is how broad the toolkit is we have of solutions to these kind of problems when we dig in and identify where they are.
Yeah. That was all I had.
Thanks, Alder. Alder O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the, I guess, the map showing where the growth in the city is and then tying that into the employment centers. I'm curious what definition, because on here it shows that we have high growth of industrial kind of down by Stoughton Road, south of the Beltline. And then we've seen that becoming a really dense employment center, but it doesn't make the top 5. I'm curious what the threshold for your classification top 5 job centers is.
Those top 5 is basically, if you look at the job center map, you can see it's actually showing these hexagons on it. It's basically taking the densest hexagons and then the ones surrounding them that are also relatively high density. I think what you're pointing to, that area may well start hitting these kind of thresholds soon. In terms of just pure job density, distribution warehousing is often not quite as high as office buildings. So you'll see the office buildings pop a lot more here. And one of the things we are very much aware of when we're doing bus network planning is that some jobs are concentrated and some are more spread out. And it's not that we avoid serving the spread out jobs. That, for example, a bus route which passes a lot of retail can actually be serving a lot of jobs, even though that retail isn't concentrated in one spot along the route.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Also be happy to pull more population density maps if you want to dig into that more.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Anybody else have any questions for staff? Okay, I'd be looking for a motion to accept the report. Harold?
Moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Pepe?
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Just very briefly, this is an amazing report. I think you would be well served to distribute this widely to the alders who are not in the commission, and maybe also do a press release with some of the key findings. I think this is really important data for people to know. And it really shows that we have a pretty good is maybe not quite enough. We have an excellent transportation mobility system in our city, and we also have some room for improvement. So thanks for putting this together. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Harold. Bill,
I
go
think
ahead.
the one thing, Christoph, the one thing that amazed me, or that I shouldn't say amazed, that I was surprised by was the population increase, but the decrease in traffic driving downtown. That was noteworthy, and I was not. I found that very interesting.
It actually surprised us as well. It was actually one of the last pages added to this because we were digging in some traffic data, actually related to Stoughton Road, and we're really starting to see this patterns. And yeah, this is all WISDOT data we're going off of here.
Other comments? It's very valuable information and a little bit of a fresh perspective in terms of how the report was presented. So I found it very interesting as well. So hopefully we can distribute it and make good use of it, Christoph, because it's presented in a very user-friendly way, I think.
Happy.
So any other comments or discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Thanks so much, Christoph.
Thank you.
Okay, next, yes, thanks. Next, we have the Metro Transit Annual Financial Statement Audit Report. Jamie, I think you're going to do a little bit of an intro.
Good evening. Sorry, of course, per usual, I had a Zoom update to do right as I was logging on, so apologies for that.
Yeah.
But yes, so thank you for having me tonight. We also with us have our consultant, Jody from Baker Tilly, that helped part of this effort and with the team here at Metro as well. So essentially 2025, we again, as usual, had to conduct our independent audit. And essentially we got a clean report that indicated our finances are being reported accurately and managed well. So glad to see that. Just some highlights of what you'll see kind of, I think as a result of this is, and some things that are tied to this is, the ridership growth that we have seen. Looking at the BRT ridership, which is about 8,100 riders every weekday right now. We kind of started to dig into some of the cost efficiency of services, and right now BRT is hovering, just under $5 per passenger, making it pretty cost effective considering the rest of our routes. We continue to address some of our key facilities and fleet improvements during this time frame. Also, working on the maintenance bays within our East Washington facility in Ingersoll area, and then also our Hanson Road facility, which is the home of our battery electric bus fleet. So we continue to need a lot of space to manage this growing and evolving fleet, and we've been able to do that within these two garages. So continuing to work on making those buildings efficient and making sure that they grow with us. And then finally, before I kick it off to Jody, I think it's important to note that one of the things that we are focusing and we are really vetting kind of all of our work on, at a daily, weekly, monthly, annual level, but then also our future focus is the goals that we're tying to basically doing the basics well, whether that's around service reliability, on-time performance, KPIs like that, looking at improving our communications internally and externally, looking at what safety and security for riders on all of our modes and for all Metro staff out in the field, whether you're an operator, whether you're customer service, whether you're a building and grounds worker taking care of BRT stations or whatnot, planning staff out in the field doing their work. And then also, just as this audit kind of nods towards, is making sure that we're managing the public money that we're entrusted with responsibly and being good stewards of those public dollars and funds. So I'll kick it off to Jody, and thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Am I able to share the slide deck?
You should be able to.
Oh, yep. I always think it's good to check. All right. Well,
yes.
Thank you very much for having me. As said, my name's Jody Dobson. I'm a principal that oversees the annual audit for Metro. And what I want to do tonight is just walk through an overview of the audit process, the results of the audit, and the required communications to the governing body, that's the commission, as outlined by the AICPA. So first, to introduce your audit team, I've been involved in the audit for a number of years now. We also always have an individual who is not involved in the audit that completes a review of the financial statements before they're finalized. And this year that was Sarah Slaughter. She works with several different transit agencies and governmental entities. And so that role is really to take a fresh look without being in the details to the statements to see if there's anything that maybe needs additional explanation or is not clear between the different parts of the report. So we go through that. And then Megan Cahill has been the senior manager overseeing the day-to-day portions of the audit for a few years now. So as far as our audit process, we start prior to year end in taking the information we have from prior years and then working with management to understand what may have changed. So we're looking at controls and processes, systems, any key transactions that might be new, and all of that informs how we design our audit procedures. When we look at the internal controls for the organization, that's really how are transactions processed and where are the checks and balances along the way. This isn't to give an opinion on internal controls, but understanding that helps us to determine what kind of evidence do we want to look at, where might we want to test the controls and the processes versus looking at other types of support. And that support can be confirmations, selecting samples to trace to detail, substantive analytics between ridership data and revenues and things like that, of quite a variety. Ultimately, we received enough information and completed our test to issue our opinion, which was, as noted, a clean or unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements. The financial statements are the responsibility of management. All of the information comes from your records, and I believe your team, with the help of a outsourced individual, put those financial statements together at year end, and then we complete our reviews on those. I do like to point out that within the financial statements, there's a management discussion and analysis at the beginning of the document. And this is really a great summary of the key factors of what changed during the year and summarized results for the year. And so I would say if anyone has constituents that are interested, but they don't want to read through the full details with all of the footnotes, that management discussion analysis is a really nice overview that management puts together. In addition to the financial statement audit, citywide, the city has to complete a single audit because of the federal and state funding that's received. So the federal funds and state funds that are received by Metro are part of that overall process. We complete the testing of that at the same time as your financial audit, and there were no findings to note related to compliance or controls over compliance for Metro's grants. So a couple just slides here on financial results, because I know you get information throughout the year. But when we look at a 5-year trend here, this is the operating revenues for Metro. And we see, a nice upward trend here of increasing revenues. But one thing I did kind of noted to me was that the change in the black box, which is the city and other local subsidies, compared to the top two, the orange and that upper green box, which are the state and federal aid. So if we go back to 2021 through 2023, understandably, the state and federal aid was higher because of some of the things coming out of COVID. And as those are starting to be used up and expire and different things are happening, we've seen over the last couple of years that the percentage of total revenues coming from those sources has decreased, resulting in an increase in some of the other local aids that are filling that gap. And then on the other side of the coin, we have the expenses for the operations. As expected here, these are trending in the same direction as the revenues, which is kind of the way things are designed for revenue to be recovering the expenses. But here we see a bit more stability in that salaries and benefits for the last 3 years has been right at that 74-75%. And that's really in line with all the transit organizations that I work with, is that is the largest portion of the operating costs. Your contractual services, a lot of that is purchased transportation. And then, of course, in materials and supplies, you have the parts for the buses, fuel, etc. So those really do make up the bulk of the expenditures for the operations. So as far as required communications, there's a number of items that the AICPA outlines that we are required to communicate. I talked a little bit about our responsibility to design the audit such that we have evidence to support our opinion. And everything was completed as planned on the same timeline with no changes there. We do also look as part of the process at any accounting estimates, so things like depreciation, pension liabilities, etc. And there we're looking to make sure that the inputs are reasonable, the methodologies are consistent, and they're in compliance with the standards, and there were no concerns. As far as the financial statements, we do spend quite a bit of time on the financial statement disclosures to make sure, again, that they're compliant with the standards, consistent with the information in the statements, and as clear and understandable as possible. And then we're also looking at accounting policies. There were no changes in policies or new standards to be implemented in 2025. We had a quiet year. If there were difficulties, consultations, disagreements, any of those items, we would report those to you here. I'm happy to say we have nothing to report. When it comes to audit adjustments, if there were material adjustments identified during the audit, or if there were any what we call a waived adjustment or past adjustment that wasn't included in the financial statements, we would communicate those specifically to you. And they're are no adjustments to be reported. So that lets you know that the year-end financial statements are consistent with the information that you receive throughout the year. And then management does provide us a letter of representation, just confirming accounting policies, that they've provided us with meeting minutes, with attorney representations, with all the records that have been asked for. But overall, everything went very smoothly this year, and we really do appreciate the opportunity to work with the organization and all of the assistance that we receive from the management team, because I know we come in and ask a lot of questions in a very short period of time. So with that, you do have my contact information here. If there are ever any questions, I'm happy to speak to you and answer those. And if there's any questions on the actual financial statement document, I can address those as well.
Thanks so much, Jody. Before we move on to questions for Jody, Ariana, Alder Figueroa Cole is in the attendees. Could you please move her over to the panelists?
She should be moving over.
Thank you so much. And thanks for the information, Jody. Are there questions for Jody or for Jamie or other staff who's here from Metro Transit? Pepe, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Jody, for all the presentation. And I actually have a question for Jamie in regards to, Jamie, I think if I heard well, you mentioned that the BRT line is performing at $5 per passenger cost. Is that right? And if that's what I heard, do you have numbers or an idea on average what's the cost per passenger in the non-BRT routes?
Yeah, so each route kind of has a little bit of a different metric, but the base is generally the same. So that's some information that I could provide as a whole, as an update, if that would be helpful. I don't have it available in front of me right this moment, but yes, the just little tidbit about BRT is just about at about $5 right now.
If you have information that you want distributed, you can forward it to Aiden and he can just email it out to TC members. Jamie.
Excellent. We are wrapping up our annual plan report card, just kind of data dump for 2025 right now. So I will make sure to get that to TC.
Thank you so much. Are there
Thank you.
Did you have other questions, Pepe?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Are there other comments or questions? Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. Jody, could you go back to the slide where it shows the breakdown of the percentages of where the funds go as far as that? Yes, that one. Yes. I know, like last year for the materials and supplies, which I assume that means parts. Would parts be in that?
That would have parts, it would have fuel.
Okay.
And probably some other things I'm not thinking of.
As I recall, during the past year, we had issues with some of the electric buses that had to be taken out of service because of parts. Is that, and maybe this is then for Jamie, are we in a better shape now as far as having a handle on the parts issue with the new electric buses, as far as expenditures for the parts to have them on hand so that the buses are not out of service for as long?
Yeah. And Bill, if I could just say, we need to be a little careful about what topics we go, because we're talking about the 2025 audit here. So we're not really noticed to talk about going forward.
It dropped down. It dropped down.
Here is great.
It dropped down.
Talking about it here is great. Yep.
From 23 and 24 to 7%. So yeah.
And I can also, if it's helpful, provide the slides that I gave for the Finance Committee about 2025 or about 2026 budget throughout the end of the year, and then also our cost to continue. Real quick on this, Bill, thank you for your question. Right now, as it sits, we are still very much struggling with being able to get the parts for the battery electric buses when we need them. and being able to keep them in a reliable state at this point. You will see currently we are also having an increase in supplies. This is not related to fuel this year. Our fuel prices have been locked in, and that was the case for 2025 as well. So this was primarily supplies. The battery electric buses are, for the most part, out of warranty at this point. And so those parts associated with them are just like our diesel fleet now and are on our own dime. And so we now have full responsibility of the costs associated with those vehicles in the fleet as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm not meaning to be picky. I'm just trying to be true to what we have on the agenda. So thanks everybody for helping us stay on track with that. Are there other comments or questions with regard to the audit report? I can tell you I read a lot of audit reports in my 42 years as a banker, and having a clean audited financial statement was so wonderful when you're looking at trying to assess somebody's financial situation. So, Jody, it's really great to see information like this. And Jamie, you and your crew, it's really awesome to have this level of financial reporting and to receive that clean opinion. So, anybody have any other questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the report. Alder Okovich.
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Okay, there's a motion, Alder O'Brien. Second. Okay, a motion and a second. Alder Okovich, did you wish to speak to your motion at all? No? Okay. Is there discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, the motion's carried unanimously. And thanks so much, Jamie and crew and Jody for coming and sharing this information with us. It's a lot of information, but so important in the scheme of things. So thanks so much. Okay, so we will move on to item 7, which is Milwaukee Street. And Scott, am I correct? This is where we have people registered to speak?
Correct. We have 3 registrants.
Okay, so we will hear from staff. And then we will hear from the public, and then we will go to questions, and then move on to motions and discussion. So, Grisha, are you going to handle the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay,
thank you.
Perfect. Hello, my name is Grecia Izquierdo. I am the project manager and street designer for the Milwaukee Street Reconstruction Project scheduled for 2027. And I am here seeking the approval of the geometry for the project. So as a little reminder of the project location. So the project is Milwaukee Street from Starkweather Creek all the way to West Corporate Drive. And for the project scope, so I have it here divided by 2 sections, which for the first section being Starkweather Creek to Walter Street, we are going to have partial replacement of sanitary sewer main and laterals, replacement of water main, and replacement of storm sewer as needed. We are replacing the existing gravel base and asphalt pavement in the area, and we are replacing all the curb and gutter, driveway aprons, and spot replacing the sidewalk as needed. For the second section of the project, we are replacing all the utilities as on the other section of the project, but the main difference between this part and the other is that we are installing a shared use path on the north side of Milwaukee from Walter Street to West Corporate Drive. So for complete green streets right now, Milwaukee Street, it's considered a community collector street, which means that the neighborhood ranging from more walkable, which for blocks and many driveways to more car-oriented, includes some commercial and light industrial. With this project, we are proposing to changing it from a community collector street to a community main street, which for context, it is a small, medium scale mixed use with many facades, entries for retail, dining, etc. And the main reason for this change would be with the new development of the Starkweather Plat, which would bring in around 5,000 additional trips. Here I have the reference of where this information was brought in from in the complete Green Streets Guide. And here we can see the volume data. This data was presented last time when the project was presented in on the November 5th, 2025 meeting for feedback. But I just wanted to make sure it was included on this case. So as mentioned, this project was presented previously last year for feedback on its design. And those are the two options that were proposed, which included a twiddle and a 4-lane divided highway. Taking into account the feedback that was provided, we came up with a new design, which addresses all the comments from the commission and also some comments that the neighborhood had during our public informational meeting. So right now, our proposed design will include a planted median in the center to divide eastbound and westbound traffic. On the westbound traffic, we'll have a 14 to 20 feet wide travel lane. Those dimensions are from face to curb to face of curb, with that varying dimension being because of adding parking spots on the north side. And for the south side or the eastbound direction, we are having a 20-foot wide area or space, which includes an 11-foot wide travel lane, a 2 feet wide buffer, and a 7-foot wide bike lane. Also with this project, we are moving the south side curb north to have more terrace space. Another detail about this design is that we are proposing 2 raised medians, which would be on the north side of the North Leon intersection and on the north side of the North Harding intersection. And for Walter Street, we are not having raised intersections, but we are replacing that existing traffic signal. And for the proposed design from Walter Street to West Corporate Drive, we are going to have the 10-foot wide shared use path on the north side, keeping a 7-foot terrace, 14-foot wide travel lane on the north side. This is, again, from face of curb to face of curb, adding 2 medians. On the eastbound, we'll have the same section as on the west side of the project, which would be an 11-foot wide travel lane, 2-foot buffer, and a 7-foot wide bike lane. This also with this new cross section, we will be removing the bike lane on the north side and removing the parking on the south side, which per the neighborhood feedback, it was typically used, that parking lane for speeding or to pass cars. But with a parking study, we confirmed that it is viable to have that removed, and this also increases the safety for the bike people or the people biking in the area. So that's kind of a very summary of what we are proposing right now.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you so much.
And
Why don't
sorry,
we-
could I jump in real quick? Sorry. So I just want to add that we do have a slight change in our design, that we weren't able to update our exhibits at the West Corporate intersection. Chris, if you can go back to that. And talking with Metro, we worked with them to switch the location, basically swap the location of that bus boarding pad and the bike ramp so that the bikes could ramp up before the bus stop. So I just wanted to point that out. We weren't able to update our exhibit in time. We weren't able to update our exhibit in time, but that's what we're intending to do with the final design. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone, let everyone know that that's a change we're planning on making.
Okay, Sean, thanks. I understand we have some people here to from the public to speak. Scott, who do we have first?
Sorry, I'm just not used to working with one screen. Let me pull up my list. First, we have Nicholas Davies. And Nicholas will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here to give positive feedback on the design. Milwaukee Street's lane reduction has been a real success. And the combination of parking and bike lane, as mentioned, does mean that there's kind of a threat of aggressive drivers passing on the right. And this looks like it'll solve that and really make it feel more like a 25-mile-an-hour road. And this is really going to prepare the area for more infill, more pedestrians, more transit ridership, more people who need to get in and out of the neighborhood by bike. And new development may also bring more drivers, but if anything, that increases the priority of making this stretch of road safe and calm for everyone who needs to interact with those drivers. I see a lot of good details here, like the ramps to get from street level bike lanes up to path level. I'll be using those regularly. The parking study was very useful to see. It stuck out to me that there's a very low level of usage across days of the week and kind of pretty much clears out in the evening. And that to me suggests people are working somewhere nearby, probably not exactly where they're parking. And so they could pretty easily park on a side street. In my email, I did try to get across a bit of an awkward alignment at the Corporate Drive intersection where the primary bike pedestrian movement is probably going to be the north-south crosswalk on the western side of that intersection. And the angle there looks a little tight for kind of how the path approaches. Maybe a little bit of curving could help with that. The alignment of the crosswalk also kind of one end doesn't seem to quite line up with the other. It would just be good to sort that out. There's also kind of a lot of pedestrian movement between Woodman's and the bus stop right there. But yeah, overall, I'm looking forward to seeing Milwaukee Street continue in this direction. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing no hands. Thanks again for coming and sharing your thoughts. Who else do we have, Scott?
Next is Gabriel.
Can you hear me okay?
We can, go ahead.
I also like this a lot better than the prior ones. I mean, suicide lanes are really, really terrible. And I hope we can kind of remove those across the whole city. I've gotten nearly hit on my motorcycle many times when I'm waiting to turn left and somebody uses it as a merge lane or something. So getting rid of suicide lanes, great. Overall, I really like this new design. It's pretty good. There's a couple notes that I want to make. Probably doesn't need to happen in this project, but just something to remember for the future is that the narrower we can make a street, it's not just better for safety, but it's also better for tax savings. I just did some back of the napkin math, and if we made these lanes, down to the minimum that we're allowed to with the bus route running here. I took some bids from, I think it was March, when we had construction and reconstruction bids. And if we just narrow it by like down to those, like as narrow as, so a bus can still fit, but it's as narrow as we can go for a bus to fit, we could save something like $200,000 over the lifespan of the road. That's in 2026 money. So just like, and again, this is a half a mile of road, this whole project. So if we can just like, I mean, just it's a win-win. We win in safety and in tax savings. And if we just remember that, like, for each foot wider we make a road, like, we have to pay money to, you know, resurface and construct it. And I think it's really important to remember that and consider that whenever we're looking at these designs. Like, there's the safety aspect, as we all know, narrower is better, but also like there's the money aspect. We can win in multiple ways by making roads narrower. The other thing is like with painted bike lanes on a road that has a shared use pass, I think there are places where it's good to have them, but also I think like if you can make a road narrow enough so that way it's like it's not all that challenging to cross to get onto the path, then it's sometimes better to just remove that bike path, make the road narrow and very approachable to cross, and then you can easily get onto that nice, you know, shared use path. So just like considering that, I don't know if this project, I mean, people smarter than me can figure out if this project is the one to do that, but just thinking that like, I don't know, I as a biker much prefer to be on a shared use path than a bike path, but if like the road is a pain to cross, then I'm going to use the painted bike path.
That's 3
But
minutes.
yeah, I really like it. As a whole concept, it's much better than the other options. Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant, Bill?
Thanks, Ann. I'm not familiar with the term suicide lane. Could you explain to me?
Oh, yeah. So that's, if you look at the prior options, or and even what's, I think there right now, I haven't driven it down it in a while, but it's that middle lane where you turn, right there. The center turn lane.
A twiddle. Okay.
Yes. So it's called a suicide lane, especially by motorcyclists, because if you go into it, it's like you're going to get hit head on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks very much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Do we have somebody else? Scott?
Benjamin Wolma.
Hello. I also went ahead and signed up to speak because I also am really excited about the project overall. And since you all put up with my fussing so much, I wanted to be sure I also expressed my gratitude. If I could make a comment about Christoph's presentation real quick. Well, first off, a huge thank you. It's a great presentation. Lots of fun information. I was a little confused by the train service map. I might be reading it wrong, but it makes it look like the rail yard at Johnson and Fordham and Packers has almost no impact. And I don't know how trains per day are counted, but seems like daily activity there, a lot of which does impact Sherman and Johnson, sometimes even East Wash. And I feel like that might not be reflected and could raise eyebrows by neighbors and stuff who live there. So that's all. But yeah, it's really exciting to see this. It's very evident that the feedback of the commission and public was taken to heart. On Milwaukee Street, the one thing to follow up on, I'm still confused why traffic engineering is trying to build 14-foot wide lanes. I appreciate the perspective Gabriel provided about that. And you've heard me before, so I'll leave it there. And then the other thing that I was planning to ask for, and maybe still am, is if the sidewalk on the south side of Milwaukee Street could be widened, maybe even just to 8 feet, which I think it was done for Ohio Street back when a couple of those roads were made one way near Chocolate Shop and stuff on Willie. Reason being, as we all know, it's legal to bike on the sidewalk in between Woodman's and Shent. And I feel like having a wider sidewalk would make it a lot more obvious that that's okay for people coming from the neighborhood. And also make it safer for micromobility users and whatnot. That was just a bit wider to facilitate for more two-way traffic. So people don't have to cross Milwaukee Street at what still looks like a really sketchy intersection. But I was looking at Google Maps more and have since learned from experience that you can get into Woodman's on the southwest side of the parking lot now through the neighborhood. But wayfinding is really confusing. And so maybe if widening the sidewalk isn't something people are interested in, you can just count this comment as a reminder that wayfinding for cycling could use a lot of improvement for the people who just think, hey, I want to hop on my bike and ride a place and either don't want to or aren't familiar with dealing with Google Maps and all that.
That's 3 minutes.
That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing no hands, thanks so much for coming. Does anybody have a question for staff? Pepe, go ahead.
Thanks, Anne. And thanks, Grecia, for and Sean for the presentation. I can for sure echo what the residents were sharing. I'm excited about this project. I'm excited about the new design. I have a couple of follow-up questions. Before I go to my questions, I would love for you to speak first to what Benjamin just mentioned about potentially widening the sidewalk on the south side. Is that an option? Is that possible? I would definitely support that if that would be an option. What are your thoughts on that?
So unfortunately, we cannot widen the sidewalk. First off, it would be outside of the scope of work, even though we are doing a reconstruction project. And the second part being that there are a lot of mature trees in the area, in the terrace area. So widening those will warrant the removal of all of them.
Okay. Thank you. Then my next question is about the bike lane on the eastbound. I personally support the bike lane there because I think that it's a good option to have an alternative for commuters that might want to go on the bike lane as opposed to being on a shared path where I'm imagining more, the shared path users, I'm imagining more of a all ages and abilities picture, like a place where grandma and toddler on their learning balance bike can enjoy themselves without necessarily having to crash into commuters that might go faster at times. So I like the idea of having options for people riding bicycles on both sides. Now, with the history of people mentioning in the neighborhood that parking lane was utilized for passing, and the fact that the bike lane plus the 2 feet buffer provide extra space for potentially drivers wanting to pass on the right. Is it an option? Or, I guess I'm not requesting, but would love to hear your opinion on putting bollards on that buffer in some of the sections that neighbors expose that being a risk, or in the whole area of the new Milwaukee Street, if that's an option. What will be your take on that?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So I think that could be an option. But I will say, so right now, from the center line to the face of curb, it's about 26 feet. So, a car can easily, with that, if that area is vacant, a car is able to pass another car easily. With this design, it's going to be 20 feet from, the face of curb and the median to the face of curb on the south side. So it would be really hard to, pass a car at speed. It would be pretty tight to do that, but we could add bollards if that, not bollards, but the typical kind of object markers that we do on bike lanes. So that's something we could add, but I think the narrowing of the street, 6 feet is quite a bit of difference. I don't think that we'll have that passing issue, but it's something we can certainly, keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, Sean. Yeah, it doesn't need to be ballards, it doesn't need to be something huge, but as you're saying, anything that shows separation, so we can eliminate the encouragement to people passing on the right, especially on the longer stretches, having a median. Probably not necessarily closer to, intersections where people will want to turn right. But in those long stretches, I think will be a good idea. Thank you. And then my last question is about crossing for pedestrians. I see, and I'm excited about the median for this fact. A lot of the crossings are very well thought of with keeping them short. So that would make them safer. Now, the only crossing that I don't see having that big improvement is the crossing right at West Corporate and Milwaukee. If you look at the Eastmoreland path, right down in the bottom right corner of this photo, for people, I can see a lot of people wanting to connect from the Eastmoreland path into the new multi-use path on the north side of the road. Are we planning on having an RFB in that intersection or anything to make it safer for people wanting to get across?
That intersection is signalized currently.
Thank you. It is. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. I guess that answers my question then. Thanks so much.
And we will look at the alignment there. I think one of our plans with the markings kind of didn't show it aligning right. So that is something that with the markings, we're going to work out those finer details to make sure that, the alignment across for bikes works well. And, if we have to adjust that median nose, we might, do that as well.
You thinking like green paint, for example, something to make it more obvious?
So it's a multi-use path, so we can't use green paint, but we could do a continental crosswalk.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks,
That's all I
Pepe. Thank you, Pepe. Harold, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. Looks very good. I don't know, this comment came in pretty late, so you may not have seen it, but somebody asked about what's happening at the West Corporate Drive intersection. Because, and I looked at the area plan, I think eventually there's a plan to have like some sort of probably multi-use path along West Corporate Drive to eventually connect to the Marsh path, I think that is. And is the idea that that part of the intersection then will just get rebuilt as the transfer point property is being redeveloped?
Yeah, I think that's kind of our general plan is to widen that sidewalk when that gets redeveloped. And that's why right now we're just showing a ramp to get people to the bike lane. But eventually, the idea is to get a path on that that west side of West Corporate Drive as properties redevelop.
Okay. And so now if I'm going eastbound on the multi-use path and I want to go to the Marsh Drive, is there a good way to get off of the multi-use path and turn left onto West Corporate Drive? Is that the ramp there?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you. Looks great.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Field, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation. I'm also really excited for this project. I'm through here almost every day on the bus. So looking forward to it. On that note, I can see the pullouts on the north side of the street along westbound traffic where the bus stop will likely be. I'm wondering if you can help me identify where the other side of the streets, the eastbound bus stop is going to be in this area, somewhere around Harding Street, I imagine.
So I guess just to clarify, the bus stops the buses are not going to be picking up and dropping off in that pullout area. Chris, if you could zoom into the Walter Milwaukee intersection, there's an orange rectangle that's just west of the intersection. So they're actually going to be stopping in lane. The buses aren't going to be
got it.
Pull out. So yeah, that orange rectangle is where a bus stop will be. And then on the south side, east of Walter, that's where the bus stop will be for the D and whatever route that is on Walter. I think it's the O, maybe.
I think it's the L. Yeah,
cool. The L. Yeah, the L. So yes, that's where that bus stop will be.
Yeah, I think that works great on Atwood for the C for what it's worth, so I'm excited for that here. My second question is about the planted grass medians. I'm curious about just knowing the ongoing expense that comes with maintaining planted grass medians. How do we decide when the median is wide enough to merit planting and when that planting should be grass as opposed to seeded with perennials, something that can take care of itself without maintenance?
I can try and answer that. I'm certainly not an expert on it, but it seems that 10 feet is kind of the sweet spot that we found. That if it's wider than 10 feet, it can kind of be maintained. It's like the size of the mower. Is able to mow that easily without causing too much disturbance. So these medians are plenty wide where they should be able to do their work and not impact the travel lanes. So in some cases it's when it's more convenient if the medians are wider because it gives them more space to operate. So that's kind of what this what this design has. So I've always found that if it's greater than 10 feet, that's kind of when you can start doing grass, and the maintaining of it is easier.
And so will this be like mowed grass, like managed turf?
Yeah, that's our plan. At this point, we haven't looked into if we plant trees or anything yet. We haven't really gotten into that detail, but
I see.
It's certainly wide enough where that could be a possibility.
I think that'd be a cool possibility for what it's worth, but no further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. First off, great design. Very excited for this area, and I think it's a good design. My question is, I didn't quite understand what you were saying about the bus stop near Corporate Drive at the end of the presentation. I was wondering if you could just go over that again.
Yeah, this is a good point of clarification. So, the design you're seeing now was kind of our earlier concept. In talking with Metro, we basically flip-flop that ramp and the bus stop, so bikes can ramp up to the path before the bus stop. The way it's shown right now didn't really make a lot of sense because if a bus is there, a bike would have to go around and then go on the ramp. So we flip-flopped it so a bike can ramp up before a bus that stopped. It's a minor tweak, but we just wanted to make sure that was called out because that, it is, even though it's minor, it is kind of a big deal for operations for Metro.
Yeah, and that ramp is the one in the bottom middle, not the one on the bottom right? Or is it the one?
Yep. Yeah, that ramp. To the left of the orange rectangle. We're flip-flopping those.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. So all my questions.
Thanks, Alder. Are there other questions for staff? Chris?
Thanks. I just have a little feedback. I assume that's appropriate now.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this looks great. I think the one thing I would stress, which came up, is the treatment at the West Corporate Drive intersection. So just making sure that you're considering pedestrian crossings of people carrying groceries and cyclists coming out of Woodman's and making a left. And I think one thing just to stress is that there will not be one right way to do that. Like, I think some folks will come down the existing Eastmoreland path and want to use that crosswalk. And so they will want to be taking that left turn onto the path, the new path. So I think one of the registrants said, it looks like a hard turn to make on a bike. And so I think that's right. But also people will be, that path is hard to get to from Woodman's. So people will be coming out of the Woodman's entrance on a bike and taking that left. So I'm glad to see the bike ramp, but just as you're thinking through the details of that intersection, consider that people will be using it in a lot of different ways.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so any other questions or comments? So I'm just going to summarize what I heard in terms of all of the requests from staff. It appears to me that we would be looking for a motion to change the street type from community collector to community main street and approve the recommended geometric design, including the minor change verbalized by staff. Prisha and Sean, am I summarizing that correctly?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So that's what's requested by staff. Is anyone willing to make that motion, or does anybody have a different motion that they'd be willing to make? Pepe, go ahead.
I'm happy to make that motion, the one that you just read, and I think is move to approve the geometry and changing the Milwaukee street design to a community main street with some comments from commission regarding West Corporate Drive intersection and bike lane protection or highlights. Did I miss anything?
You added something, so let me just review what I have now. So motion to change the street type from community collector to community main street and approve the recommended geometric design, including the minor change verbalized by staff and consideration of bike lane protection at West Corporate Drive. Is that what you wanted added, Pepe?
No, bike lane separation throughout the corridor and West Corporate Drive intersection safety. I don't know how to phrase. I mean, like Chris said, there's different ways that you can address that. So should we just leave it as with comments from and addressing two comments from the commission as a general note?
So
they know
we could say including the minor change verbalized by staff and additional.
Yep, that's probably good.
And how about consideration of the additional feedback from members?
Sure.
Okay, so what I have is motion to change the street type from community collector to community main street and approve the recommended geometric design, including the minor change verbalized by staff and consideration of the additional feedback from members. Does that work, Pepe?
That's it. Yep.
Okay, Alder Okovich.
I will second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. Did you wish to speak to your to the motion, Pepe?
I mean, I'm only gonna say I'm very proud of the staff recommendation for this geometry. I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you. Is there discussion from members? I'd just like to say I did go back and watch the discussion from the November meeting where two designs were presented and the comments from members basically were in favor of a hybrid, not either of what was presented, but a hybrid of something a little bit different, taking certain features into account. And staff really was responsive in providing a hybrid and incorporating all the feedback that was presented by members. Pepe.
Yeah, I agree. They did a great job. I just wanted to support the question from Alderfield regarding less maintenance cost. And, you know, I would personally prefer that we had more native flowers planted instead of so much grass. But again, if they can look into if that's something important to consider in terms of budget to save on maintenance, I think that'd be really cool.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other comments for consideration by staff? Just things that you'd like them to think about as they go into more details with the design, or comments on the motion, discussion regarding the motion. Lynn.
Yes, excuse me, everything everybody said, great design. I am going to just add one more thing that I was very happy to hear the Continental Crossing at East Corporate or West Corporate Drive. That one, that was a key question. So I was really happy that that got answered. Otherwise, I appreciate this very much again.
Thanks, Lynn. I can just say, you've all heard me say many times, I live just off Moreland Road, and continental crosswalks were added all along Moreland Road, and that makes a huge difference in terms of identifying to drivers that it is in fact a crosswalk and something that they should be paying attention to. So those continental crosswalks are really an excellent tool, I think, that we have. Other comments, questions? Lynn, your hand is still up. Did you have something else? I can't seem to put it down. Thank you so much. Other comments or discussion? Okay, I'll read it back. Motion to change the street type from Community Collector to Community Main Street and approve the recommended geometric design, including the minor change verbalized by staff and consideration of the additional feedback from members. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. And again, thanks so much to staff for really bringing back a design that really reflected a ton of feedback that you got in the November meeting. So thanks so much for that. All right. So next item on the agenda is review and approve the TC handbook and special rules. And I'll just make a brief presentation. There was an action memo that I put together that summarized all of the changes. The most significant change is the update to Section 7, the relationship of TC to the Board of Public Works and the Plan Commission. And it relates to the change in the ordinance that added the proper procedure should Board of Public Works or the Common Council disagree with the recommendation from the Transportation Commission. We spent a lot of time talking about this, but I added some just verbal explanation of what that meant and what that process was, and then updated the actual, and it's always the actual ordinance language has always been included because it's such an important thing that we're aware of. And so that was updated as well. And the rest of the changes are fairly minor and are described in the action memo. And there are no proposed changes to the Transportation Commission special rules. So does anybody have any questions for me? Harold.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks for updating this. And thank you for clarifying the BPW or updating the BPW language, me being the cross or over member. I really appreciate that. I was just wondering, is this something that also you or somebody from staff has connected with the BPW chair on? Because, we don't have this handbook. And so, I feel like TC is always much better. It's very well organized and has all this written out. Whereas that's not always true on the other end. And I think so it would be good to share this information so that both sides of the affected bodies have that and the members are aware of it. Yeah.
I'm happy to share this with them. The language in the ordinance was approved by the Common Council. All I did was try and put it into a little bit more plain speak and add in some of the things that aren't in the ordinance, that just, reminders like if we disagree with something or we put something on the record, that it stays in the record, even if Board of Public Works or Common Council don't agree with us. So, but yeah, I'm happy to share it with the Board of Public Works and point out that section for them. So I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there other questions or comments? Okay, I would need a motion to approve the updated TC handbook and special rules. Harold.
Moved.
Okay, and Alderfield?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Did you wish to speak to your motion at all, Harold?
Nope, just saying thank you, Anne.
Oh, thanks. Is there any discussion with regard to the motion? Okay, seeing no discussion. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. And thanks for recognizing that, Harold. I'm one of those weird people who likes to work on stuff like that. So you remember from the Safe Streets Madison stuff that, I don't know, it was part of my job at the bank and I kind of like doing this stuff. So thanks for recognizing that. All right, next we have update to the Transportation Commission work plan. So there are several changes here. The main changes that I would call your attention to are in the notes section on the first page of the work plan. We've had a lot of discussion with regard to how can we make our meetings more efficient? How can we keep the meetings from being long, perhaps longer than maybe they should be? And Chris McCahill and I met and talked about it, and then I talked with staff about it. And a couple of the things that we came up with were reminders to staff to help presenters better understand our expectations. So the whole cover page of the work plan is something that can be shared with staff that says, hey, remember, this is when you need to get the materials to the recording secretary so that we get the materials far enough ahead of time so we have time to review them. And to remind staff that, you don't have to read every slide to us. You can just give us the highlights because everybody here is really, really great, very diligent about reviewing the materials ahead of time. And it's actually complimentary to staff because they've prepared this great material, you don't have to go over it again. They just have to hit the highlights that they want us to know. And that is okay to do that. And reminders that if we put something on the consent agenda, it's again, not an insult. It's just, hey, this is routine. We're reading it. We're paying attention to it. And you did such a great job. We don't need to talk about it. Or you brought it to us once before and there aren't significant changes. So we don't need to talk about it again. With Milwaukee Street tonight, it was important to show lots of changes from the last time we saw it. So again, trying to explain all this and put it down so that a manager can sit down with somebody who hasn't been to TC before and say, this is what they expect from you. And hopefully that's going to help make our meetings shorter. Or as we talked about with Jamie earlier, it's great if staff has updates for us. They get it to Aiden and shoot it out in an email. We don't need to spend time at TC talking about it if we can just read it in an email. If you read it in an email and you say, hey, wow, we need to talk about this, then you can email me and we can put it on the agenda to talk about. So always, hopefully, for us to just keep this effort moving forward to make our meetings as efficient as we can. And in terms of other changes, there was one other change that, well, all of the changes are again summarized in the action memo, which you've all seen. But Tom Lynch used to bring memos to us with updates on various projects, and they were very routine, and oftentimes there weren't very many changes to what he said in them. And we've realized that we haven't had those in a while, and we haven't missed them because what Christoph and Yang and Jamie and Stephanie and Chris Pedakowski and others have been doing is they just bring it to us if we need to hear about an update. Or like Mick has done a couple of times, they've emailed out information to us if we need to hear about it as an update. So we can save staff time from preparing a report that is really duplicative because we're hearing about it at TC if we need to, or getting an email from them if we need to hear about it. Liz Callan did that, an email update for us recently too. So we're removing that as something that we're going to see periodically because, again, I think it's just not something that I think it's just make work, if you will. Alder Field, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to offer a suggestion because I serve on the Plan Commission also, and that's another one that has pretty regular meetings that can be kind of hefty depending on the content. And that is one where most of the Plan Commission meetings are going through the motions of development review projects that are specific to a proposal as opposed to policy. And that this commission engages in policy pretty frequently. I've seen that over the years and especially since joining. The way that the Plan Commission structures its content is to have special quarterly-ish meetings where no development projects come before the commission, but that's the space to devote 30 to 60 minutes on policy. And those meetings, we try to tell other alders to tune into and pay attention because that's a key time when alders who are trying to keep up with what's going on in the city and why a project in their district looks that way, that's a great space for them to learn and keep up with what's going on over in the Plan Commission space. So I wonder if we're going to be having less discussion here in TC meetings. I'm trying to think of before I was a member and I looked to the TC meetings as a way to keep up. If some of these email updates to commissioners that staff will be doing in lieu of agenda items during the meeting could also be sent to the entire council, because that would be a great way for alders to be able to keep up with some of these decisions and what's going on if they can't find it on the TC agendas.
Sure, and we wouldn't, anything that needs let me just clarify, anything that would need a decision would still come to the commission. The email updates are just information only type updates. But if you think the information only updates would be helpful to send to the council as well, we can certainly consider doing that. Because if they want to read it, they can read it. If they don't, they don't. right?
I think it'd be great if there's a place where alders can find it at very least, whether that's an email or something else. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's great. Alder Figueroa Cole, go ahead.
Thank you. Echo is part of what Alder Fear is saying, but I'm a little bit confused. So it's a suggestion that to make presentation shorter or more summarized all the time, or only when the item has been reviewed at least once?
It's the intention is, and it's hard to explain. I used to do a lot of teaching, so it's something that kind of comes second nature, but some folks read each and every line on each and every slide that can take forever. And if you've read that already, that's very boring to people and not necessary. So when I say that people need to just convey the highlights, it would be similar to what Christoph did with his presentation. He didn't read everything that was on every slide. He just summarized the slide. And it's something that can take folks a while to understand how to do. But it's not meant to exclude any important information, because we understand that sometimes people, the general public or other alders, may not have read all the material. So getting those key points is important. It's perhaps more of a presentation advice, if you will, and something that managers can talk to their staff about, just to remind them of what might be the best way to present the material. Does that help, Alder?
Yeah, thank you. That does help. So, I mean, I to full transparency, I do watch these meetings on double speed, so I try to use the best use of my time too, so I understand the intent. And then a question: so when new alders come on board, what kind of training does the new alders get on regards to the many different policies that this committee holds or controls? Because sometimes I feel, sometimes I've seen alders, either alders in the committee or even alders coming in to participate in the meeting, don't quite understand the policies. And that, sure. And I've seen that mostly when we do this shift. And now that we have elections every year, you may be seeing new alders coming in every year. So is there a way to also educate the members and the new alders on the core policies of this, so when they ask questions or when they're concerned about something, they can lean on those policies that already exist?
Sure. I'm going to answer that with 2 points. One is that when new alders come on, and Yang is the executive secretary of TC right now, Yang and I have arranged opportunities to meet with the new alders and just have a general conversation and answer questions. And in the TC handbook, which we just approved, on page 8 is a listing of all the topics that new members should familiarize themselves with. And those topics, there's a Transportation Commission website, and the topics have links on the website, so that, say, you're not familiar with transportation demand management, there's a link to transportation demand management. Complete Green Streets, there's a link to Complete Green Streets, so that we don't have to have a one-on-one where we go over everything. We can have a one-on-one and say, here's where you can find information, and if you have questions about it, then you can come back and ask. And the other thing that we also do is provide the names of, and I know brand new alders also have orientation with staff as well, as my understanding. But again, copy the directors of the various divisions within the Department of Transportation, as well as Christoph, and offer opportunities to meet with them to go over things. if you want to go out to Metro Transit and have a tour, any of the staff is willing to do those kinds of things. So we do a Zoom orientation, and then we offer the invitation to get together with people. And then there's that section in the handbook that has all those topics that you're talking about that you're supposed to familiarize yourself with over the first 6 months that you're on the commission. And that's why we have the links on the website so people can do it at their own pace. Does that help, Alder?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and excuse me, Alder Field, you talked about the additional 4 meetings that the Plan Commission has. One thing that we've struggled with Transportation Commission is we already have so many meetings, TC meetings during the year, that trying to schedule additional meetings just got to. We even tried twice to get together for physical. Hey, let's get to know each other in person, and it was really, really hard to get even half the group together. So our goal is to try and make the meetings more efficient so we have time to have those extended conversations about policy at our regular TC meetings. That being said, and Chris and I have talked about this because he was on the Plan Commission as well, and I talked to Liddell Zellers about it when she was chair, that I think that we reserve that as if we have, say, curb management. Say it's going to be like 3 or 4 hours to talk about curb management, then, maybe we consider a separate meeting to have that extended policy discussion. And Transportation Policy and Planning Board did that at least twice that I recall when they had extended discussions. Chris, I think at least a couple times. Wasn't there times on Transportation Policy and Planning Board where you had a working session that was just devoted to one topic?
I don't actually.
Maybe once or twice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something for us to think about, Alder, because, when we've got a bunch of stuff on our agenda and then we get to the end and we've got this big topic, people's brains are tired when that happens.
Thank you for thoughtfully considering and processing the feedback. I had no doubt you've been putting thought into it. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So definitely on the table for us to think about. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, just to stress that point. I approached Anne with some thoughts that I learned from the Plan Commission also, which are meetings that go long and in some ways do some things a little more efficiently. And Anne was already thinking about some of those things and was receptive to new ideas. So I think this is going to help a lot, and we'll keep tweaking things. When the Transportation Policy and Planning Board went away, the Transportation Commission had to take on more, and I think that sometimes leads to these long meetings with a mix of detailed projects and high-level policy stuff that can be a real struggle. So I think we're just thinking about that, and I appreciate Anne taking a crack at this.
Thanks, Chris. And just a reminder to everybody that, while we try and limit the handbook to once a year, because that's a pretty big deal, the work plan, several years, we have modified it once and sometimes even twice in the middle of the year. So as people have comments or as we see ideas and we want to try new things and we want to figure out how to make ourselves even more efficient or effective, we can bring it back in and talk about it again. So, this is a more dynamic document, if you will, than the handbook is designed to be. Because it is a work plan, and it's something that, I use it all the time to make sure I just noticed something on there that we haven't done in a while, and I'm like, oh, geez, we got to do that. So it's there as a reminder for that, and I found it to be a real useful tool, but it's more dynamic, if you will. So, other comments, and it provides us opportunities to have this kind of conversation, which is really helpful. Other comments? Okay, I would need a motion to approve the updated handbook till we decide to revise it again. Harold.
Approval.
There's a motion. Alderfield. Okay, there's a motion and a second. And Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion? Okay, the motion is carried, and thanks again for the thoughts and the additional feedback, and we'll continue to try and find additional ways to try and address all of the work that we have, because we have more work than we can possibly fit into our meetings right now. So however we can figure out how to do that is very, very helpful. So thanks so much. Okay, next we have reports from other BCCs. Does anybody have anything else to report from other BCCs? Harold.
In the spirit of having more things to work on than we have time for, at the Board of Public Works meeting last week, we talked about plans and specs for a couple of new streets and paths on the west side of town, University Research Park, where Pleasant View and where the big roundabout on Pleasant View is. So this didn't come to a Transportation Commission because it meets all complete green streets requirements. But as the project was discussed, it seemed wise to maybe bring this back to Transportation Commission for like the bigger picture items. So there was a motion made to refer it back to, or to refer it to the TC. So we will be talking about that sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that. And it's great to have that. It seems to me, and Harold, you have to let me know what you think about that, but it seems this past year we've had some really good, we've had more visible interaction between Board of Public Works and Transportation Commission than I've seen in the past. Like there's, you know, hey, can we go back and forth, or what do they think about this, or back and forth. So I found that interesting and helpful myself. So anybody have anything else to mention? No? Okay. Next is announcements by the chair, and I don't have any tonight, so we'll just move on to potential agenda items. And Harold, I'll put what you mentioned on there, and I'll maybe look back at the last Board of Public Works meeting and check that out. But we have Metro Transit Facilities Planning and Design Manual, which Mick had mentioned at prior meeting. So that will be coming. Metro Transit December service changes, potentially the public hearing for removal of RP3 parking on Mill Street. There's, you know, we've talked about that a few times, but I think we need to make sure that we're all set for that. So that may or may not come. Then we're going to be looking at the basic street geometry for South Whitney Way for the street improvements at Akira Toki Middle School. And this is a MMSD is involved in this, as well as Tom and Sean. And we're on a pretty tight schedule because it's going to be a plan commission on August 31st. So we want to see it at TC on August 26th, Alderfield. So we can see it here before it's at plan commission on the 31st. We're hoping to get the TC meeting schedule for 2027, but Board of Public Works has to be, you haven't seen that yet, have you, Harold, for 2027? Okay, so it's important that we know about Board of Public Works schedule because we need to coordinate that pretty well. So we're going to be working on that. And then the quarterly traffic safety report. So is anybody have any other, and we've made a lot of progress on, we have some many agenda items that members have asked us to take a look at, and we made a lot of progress on those, and we continue to work on those as well. So does anybody have anything else that they'd like to see added to the agenda? our future agenda. Harold.
Yeah, I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I have been recently wondering about the All Ages and Abilities Network that we haven't heard about in a long time. So I guess I'm just wondering where that's at and when that's coming back to TC, because various, area plans refer to it, but we don't have it yet. And yeah.
Sure. Yang and Christoph, it seems to me we've been talking about that, and it's going to be coming back to us soon. Is that right? Either Yang or Christoph?
I think Yang would know that timing.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we are summarizing all the input from the public. And so the plan right now actually is to bring the PED plan and the Safe Route to School plan to the council. That will be referred to TC and then back to the council. After that, we'll be to the all AAA bike plan.
Thank you.
All right, so it should be coming to us sometime soon.
It should be added TC in a few weeks.
Okay. All right, great. Anybody have anything else they'd like to see added? Okay. Right, then we need a motion to adjourn. Harold.
Move adjournment.
Robbie.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote. And again, thanks for all your feedback and input. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.